Hello and welcome to Creature Club. I don't like that. I don't like how
You don't like that. You want to take another go at it. That's fine.
Okay.
See, it's this is the joy of recorded audio. You can just sort of go.
You can just do that. Like it isn't live, so I can just
Exactly. So take your time.
Yeah. I might just leave it for a bit and then just kind of.
Do you want to start and then come back to it? Like.
Let's just continue on. All right. So meat and potatoes. You can do this part.
Breakfast yet?
Yeah, we'll do that part and then we'll edit in the intro later.
Oh wow, yeah.
We'll do it like Pulp Fiction.
I was going to say,
where we kind of start in the end and then we kind of go to the second part and then
we're doing it like a movie where you don't have to film in order.
Sure, I might as well record the bit now then.
Hello
and
you shouldn't have stopped, man. Your recording is different to mine, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. This is just.
I know that is my fault. Some Elvis juice went the wrong way.
Elvis juice. I'm sorry. Wait, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Brewdog's Elvis juice, grapefruit.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Grapefruit infused IPA. It's taking effect, as you can tell.
We're just gonna say that other alcoholic beverages are available.
Of course, yeah. Many other beverages are available. I just got them because they were reasonably cheap in the local supermarket, which I will not name a brand of. Again, we're not being paid by anyone. I was like, you know what? I've been a good boy. I'm going to pick up a 4-pack of these, stick them in the fridge, and then when we decided to record, I'm like, oh, I'll have a wee can, wee stubby, as they call it.
A stubby, yeah. Stubby can, and then you're kind of on the barbecue as well.
Oof.
On the Barbie.
Oh God, I never got to go to any barbecues because everyone was locked down during the summer.
Everyone was locked down, yeah.
Fuck.
I think my folks used to always barbecue.
Yeah,
every time it's nice out, they just always barbecue.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I actually love a good Barbie. Like they're absolutely fierce. Like a nice Barbie with mates and a few beers is actually, it's so good. It's like, but
we haven't started the podcast yet.
Sorry, you're right. We're 3 minutes into the record.
I haven't even said hello. Welcome to Creature Club.
now, technically, you've said it twice. You just haven't liked it.
If I actually put this at the start of the show, people will be cancelled.
People would riot.
We're already we're already chancers when it comes to the podcast format.
That's true.
We're already chancing it. But now, if I actually do this, I think we're done. To be honest, we're actually done.
It was a good run. We got to 69. That's all that counts.
Let's do it. Okay, welcome to Creature Club. How's it going? I am your host, Mikey DC, and I'm with my co-host, Daniel.
Good evening, everybody.
And on this show, we like to talk about the monsters of D&D. That's Dungeons and Dragons for you people who are just tuning in, I guess, if there's still some of you guys out there. And what we do in this show, we like to talk about the monsters in the Monster Manual, the 5th edition Monster Manual. We kind of talk about the history of the game, the history of them in the game, the history, if there is any real-world history to do with them. And then we like to go through the stat block and kind of talk about how we'd like to use them ourselves. And today, we're talking about a pretty scary thing for around Halloween time, I guess. It's the day or the 2 days after Halloween. This is coming out, I think.
It'll be November 2nd.
Ooh, the spooky November 2nd. But Daniel, what are we talking about on November 2nd?
On November 2nd, obviously, it is my birthday. No, it's not.
Wait, no, it's not. I was like, is it? No, it's not.
Yeah, you know what my birthday is. It's your birthday.
It's my birthday, yeah.
It's my birthday.
Yeah, it's mine.
The Drider is a sort of a centaur-esque creature. It's the bottom, and by bottom we mean most of a spider. So that's the kind of the abdomen, the big sort of fat body of a spider, and 8 legs. But the top half is not taken up by a spider head. Instead, it's taken up by a drow, a dark elf torso.
Yes.
And so the name is a portmanteau of drow and spider, so Drider.
Yes. Spooky stuff. Scary imagery. A
Yeah.
spider.
Perfectly timed
person.
for November 2nd.
Perfectly timed. A Spider-Man, if you will. I was just saying to Dan before we record this episode, I was trying to look up, is there any spider people in media?
Yeah.
And then I looked it up and it just kept giving me pictures of Spider-Man.
Get me
whoever that
pictures of
is.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think I got a anime waifu who's also a spider girl, who has a bottom half of a spider. So I just kind of left that just for aside for.
And
just
yeah,
now.
that's sort of like once you hit anime, you're like, it's almost like a sign you've dug too deep. You know, it's like
I dug too deep. Yeah,
it's the equivalent of like you find lava in Minecraft. You're like, well, I can't get past here. This is just
yeah. Might as well just like take another place.
Yeah,
then.
it's like I'll just turn back. There's nothing else here.
Yeah, nothing else here to talk about. But yeah. But other like, there's still, spiders in fantasy have always been kind of the go-to, like, let's fight some spiders. So like a spider centaur, almost, for the lack of a better way of saying it, because it's kind of, if you're trying to get that image in your head, like a spidery centaur person is always I think it's a great addition, and it fits very well in the game of Dungeons and Dragons. So it is. Did we say it's called the Drider? Did we?
Yes, we did.
Say the name of it. Yeah,
we did.
Either way, the name's on the thing. Yeah, the Drider, the name. Like, I think it took me a while. It took me later than it really should have to realize that it was drow spider, because I think I said before on the show that Drider I just thought was a cool name, like Strider.
Yeah.
It strides, but it drides, whatever that means.
Drides, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I get that. Like, it would be interesting as well if, like, the name did have some kind of meaning.
So, like, Drider, what's the Drider's deal, Daniel? What is their thing?
The thing about Driders is that, unlike a lot of the time, we have to get, like, into the kind of lore of Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of times we can kind of just talk broadly. But Driders are quite specific. So, the drow, the Dark Elves, have a goddess that they worship called Lolth, and Lolth is the queen of spiders, I think. Might be one of her names.
The spider queen.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, basically what you said.
Yeah, it was pretty close. I'm happy enough with that. So basically how it works is Lolth will bring forward drows who are who have demonstrated a promise in some way, like they're powerful enough or they're useful, and they'll be put to a test. And if they fail that test, they get turned into a spider. And that's where they come from, basically. Obviously as a result, because they are, their form is a result of a failure. They're sort of outcast by their society because they're seen as like, abandoned by their god. And so they have a pretty hard time. And so they tend to kind of go solo and stuff like that. And as a result, they're nice because you can sort of use them if you want to have dark elves, but they're not like, because dark elves are like kind of complicated and political, but Driders are just like weird outcasts who have to eat people to survive.
Yeah, and just by kind of like this is the first kind of little change or little gripe I have with it. Not really much of a gripe, but it's just kind of this first thing I just noticed where they are changed into this spider drow. But looking at the picture, they look pretty cool. They look pretty like, they look pretty cool. And if I was like, all right, you're going to change into that to scar you for life, and then you're just like, oh, I'm just like, a spider person now. Look at like it looks cool. But I was just gonna say that I would like to go a bit more like grotesque with it, kind of really kind of mess them up with that one, kind of make go with the general concept, but kind of go a bit more like body horror with it, kind of a bit more
grotesque.
Yeah, absolutely.
So actually, that's an interesting point. And to finish that point, Mikey, I'm actually going to read through. We're going to go back in time in a metaphorical sense, and we're going to talk about the different Driders in the different editions of the game. So we're going to start with the first edition. The Drider first appeared in the second monster manual, so a little time after the first. So it's, and I've said this a lot of times for 5th edition, it's basically everything you get in the 5th edition book. The big difference between what we have in the 5th edition book and what we have in the 1st edition book is obviously some of the mathematical details, which I'm not going to go into because they're not very interesting. And also that that unlike the 5th edition book, which gracefully says spell casting is a variant for Driders that increases their challenge rating, is nice because it means you can just not run them as spellcasters. But the 1st edition book says all drow are natively spellcasters, therefore all Driders are natively spellcasters. And so it lists, it says that, female Driders have a clerical magic ability of a 6th or 7th level cleric, and male Driders are equivalent to a 7th or 8th level magic user, aka a wizard. So you have to like manage a full stat block with a full wizarding cast, and also both genders have different natural spell casting based on their gender. So you have to make note of all those things if you're running a Drider, which to me seems like an actual nightmare. Like
literally the worst.
Like that would be I would like not be able to run other creatures unless they were like zombies or something like that had no, almost no autonomy, no complex decision making.
Just throw like a skeleton for the rest of that campaign, just
exactly.
a few skeletons. Like, we're gonna fight this. You had this Drider done up as like a big encounter.
I've had to do all the maths to figure out the Drider, and it's like I don't know, like D4 skeletons, like
rat people maybe.
Yeah, or just have the the Drider just all its spellcasts it just uses like I just summon zombies or whatever, so then it doesn't even do stuff. The only other thing it says that I think is interesting. Is that it says that obviously Driders are outcasts, so they don't tend to have communities. It says they're seldom found in numbers, preferring to work alone. However, they may be accompanied by between 2 and 12 huge spiders. So, and then it says that this is how they stalk people. They're ambush predators. They stalk people until they detect a good opportunity and jump them, which isn't surprising, really. I think that's kind of obvious because that's what spiders do. But I like that thing where it's 2 to 12, which is basically 2d6 huge spiders. So they might have like sort of an entourage. And it also creates an interesting like sort of hierarchy where like Driders maybe have control over spiders, which I think is an interesting idea.
Yeah.
The Drider does not seem to appear in 2nd edition as far as I could tell, but they're back in 3rd edition. And they are basically completely identical.
Right.
They've still got the complicated spellcasting of a drow. They've still got some very small spider abilities, and they still seem like they would be quite difficult to run. God, they've got so many spells.
Anything in 4e, anything weird in 4e. Because that's always been a good resource for strange variations of these monsters. So.
And this is the interesting part, Mikey. So there's 2 things about the Driders in 4th edition. First of all, there's 2 of them, which is always good. There's the Drider Fang Lord, which is basically which is classified as a brute, which in 4th edition parlance means that it has a lot of health and it gets up close to you and it just hits you until you die. That's its plan. But they also have the Drider Shadow Spinner, who's like this cool kind of like elite Drider who has like shadow magic and can like create like clouds of darkness and like move really easily, and they get bonuses if they like move stealthily from place to place and then ambush enemies and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. So, but the important thing is that there is much less lore, and generally in 4th edition there's a lot less lore. But there is one piece of lore about Driders, and it says, in drow society, the strongest and bravest can take the test of Lolth. Those who succeed become Driders, members of a privileged caste. Those who fail usually die. So 4th edition,
that's just the opposite.
Exactly. Like you say, it looks cool. 4th edition actually flips the script and says Driders are the better ones. And I actually think there's a really good argument for that. I mean, if we assume that Lolth is the Spider Queen, like giving followers your form would probably be seen as a sign of endorsement, right? Isn't it weird that you turn them from weird sort of humanoids into actual spiders like you, and then that's a bad thing? So like you say, it looks cool, and so actually 4th edition doubles down on that and says it is cool, and they're the best.
Yeah, because I like the idea of like Lolth going like, I'm gonna just turn into a spider if you fail on my test. You're just gonna be one of my tiny little minions now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, spider, you're not gonna be a Drider. You're going to be a spider, not even a giant spider, a regular spider,
just a regular household spider,
like literally like a daddy long legs, and that's your life now. You're gonna get like decked by someone's gonna drop the Bible on you and you're dushed like.
Or the D&D monster manual.
Yes. No.
No.
Go away.
But I really like that. That's really cool because that's like our first little like change there that we could do with a Drider is, what if it just the opposite of like what it says in the book? What if like they're actually a cool thing?
That's the Creature Club classic though. What if no?
What if no?
Do you want to read this this description of the Drider in 5th edition, Mikey?
Absolutely. I'll go for it right now. Drider. When a drow shows great promise, Lolth summons it to the demon web pits for a test of faith and
You sound
strength.
like the guy from Soul Calibur.
Yeah.
Soul
still burns. We did it. Those that pass the test rise higher in the. That's not Soul Calibur. That's just me. Those that pass. Yeah, those that pass the test rise higher in the Spider Queen's favor. Those that fail are transformed into Driders, a horrid hybrid of a drow and a giant spider that serves as a living reminder of Lolth's power. Only drow can be turned into Driders, and the power to create these creatures resides in Lolth alone. So, yep, back to the regular classic definition that they are a curse if you fail the test. Kind of like, it's like, all right, you failed the test, but I'm going to still make you kind of, like, I'm going to use my power to make you useful and make you into this monster.
That's true.
You know? And going on to our next bit, scarred for life. Drow that are transformed into Driders return to the material plane as twisted and debased creatures. Driven by madness, they disappear into the Underdark to become hermits and hunters, either wandering alone or leading packs of giant spiders. On rare occasions, a Drider returns to the fringes of drow society despite its curse, most often to fulfill some long-standing vow or vendetta from its former life. Drow fear and shun the Driders, holding them in lower esteem than slaves. However, they tolerate the presence of these creatures as living representatives of Lolth's will, a reminder of the fate that awaits all who fail, the Spider Queen. Lolth is a pretty good name, isn't it? It's like LOL, but it's like fantasy LOL.
Basically,
like,
yeah.
I Lolth.
I
loathed. Yeah, so kind of it gives you a few things to do there. It gives you a reason. First of all, it gives you a reason why they would be in the material plane, so you don't have to go like, you know, into the Underdark to fight these things. They could just like, all right, you're cursed, and I'm gonna put you into material plane. Just go hang out in a cave or whatever. You can just have these monsters just be in a cave that like random encounter. They just
basically,
you see them, you know. If you want a fun monster, there you go. I like the idea of they can come back because they have this like, you know. They have this vendetta or vow, almost like maybe you can ally with them, maybe to like get you into the Underdark and maybe take on the drow if you're doing that kind of campaign. You know, you can kind of use them as a contact. Really, do you want to just go on with the rest of it?
Just
do you want to just
get into it?
Do you want to get in there? And,
let's do that.
Talk about the stat block. All right, let's do it. Meat and potatoes.
Let's jump in.
Real quick, I forgot to read out the quote, but it's a great one. Kind of tells you everything about the Drider. I failed the Spider Queen once, never again. That's from Pelanistra, the Drider. So Pelanistra has some things to say about being a Drider, and they'll never fail again, which shows that they have some sort of loyalty left in them. You know, they haven't given up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. I like that.
And a pride, perhaps, that you could utilize as a party, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Drider, large monstrosity, chaotic evil. Armor class 19, and that is natural armor with no plate, even though the character in the artwork is wearing, I think, scale mail.
Yeah, looks like it.
Maybe it's just ornamental. Hit points 1, 2, 3. That's great. That's very satisfying.
I like that. Yeah.
I like that too.
Sometimes I just when I have a big creature and I just make up hit points, I'm just like 1, 2, 3. He has that. Like
yeah. Exactly. 1, 2, 3. Or like if it's really big, you're like 3, 2, 1. You know, like it's just like speed 30 feet, and they have also a 30 feet climb speed. So they've got two kinds of movement, like a spider.
Very cool.
They've got a pretty groovy stat array. They've got 16 strength, 16 dexterity, 18 constitution, 13 intelligence, 14 wisdom, and 12 charisma. It's interesting seeing a monster with constitution as its highest stat.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's kind of a very defensive stat. It gives them more health, but it doesn't do a lot of things. But it's kind of cool that maybe tells us something about, like, the Drider is just very bulky and difficult to take down.
Yeah.
Skills. Perception +5. So that is just training and perception. Stealth +9. So I believe that's expertise in stealth, just based on the modifier.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's very sneaky, very which makes sense. They are kind of, spider people. Exactly.
Yeah.
Just a Drider like hiding under your bed, or like, getting up into the corners of your room. You're like trying to get it down with a broom. Fuck's sake. And then like you look away and it's vanished. It's disappeared again.
Where is it? And he shows up again in your, like, you just keep showing up.
In the bath or something, he can't get out.
Yeah.
Give us a hand.
Everybody has that spider that just lives in their room, that just keeps popping up. Like, what are you doing here again? Like, I put you outside yesterday.
Listen, you've been barred.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think
paying rent.
Or just do your job. There's too many flies in this house, and like,
absolutely,
come on, man. You know what? I expect better. I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. All right, languages, Elvish and Undercommon. That's great. I like that. Speaks two languages that make sense, but doesn't speak Common. But between those two, there's a good chance that the party can actually communicate with the creature.
Yeah, Elvish is like a very, common
in particular
language,
Elvish, yes, exactly.
It's like Spanish, like a lot of people speak it.
That's actually probably not a bad comparison. Elvish is like Spanish or something. I kind of see that. Like, it's got like it's used by a lot of different peoples in different places, and it's got a certain kind of like quality attached to it in terms of like people might sing in Elvish to represent something. Yeah, that's kind of a connection to that. Yeah, cool. Sorry. Anyway, challenge 6. So a party of 4 level 6 adventurers would be a fair challenge against the Drider. So first things first, it has Fey ancestry. The Drider has advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put the Drider to sleep. Yeah, just the same thing that I think like an elf or even a half elf gets if they're a PC, and you just see this all over the place. It's generally less. It's not as useful for monsters, especially big monsters like the Drider, because it's got so much health. The party are probably not like, we probably can't sleep it because it's too big.
There is times where it pops up though, because I think I remember trying to. I was playing in a game, and I tried to put an elf to sleep, and I was like, ooh, I know, I'll use sleep, and then I tried, it just didn't work, and I just forgot, like, oh yeah, like I just realized elves can't be put to sleep.
Yeah, that's right.
So sometimes you can catch people out with that, you're just like, well.
Yeah, and it can be an interesting thing to do if you're fighting like a group of NPCs, and like one or two of them is elves, and maybe they've got like helmets on, or the party just haven't asked. And so, some characters just sort of stay awake, and you're maybe surprised by that. That's kind of interesting as well. Okay, next up is innate spellcasting. The Drider's innate spellcasting ability is Wisdom. So they've got spell saves DC of 13. The Drider can innately cast the following spells requiring no material components. So they will still require somatic or verbal components. So they'll still need a hand free to wiggle, and they might need to speak.
Yeah.
At will dancing lights. That's just the cantrip that makes either 4 different lights or 1 man-sized light, which I always thought was such a weirdly specific stipulation. It's like it can be man-sized, but not like dog-sized or horse-sized. Like, no.
Yeah.
Like person-sized or nothing.
Yeah, what about a small man,
Exactly, yeah. And then one a day of each, darkness and fairy fire. So those are both pretty useful spells. Darkness probably less so because never mind. But Fairy Fire is very strong. And obviously Driders tend to fight alone, so they don't have any allies to get in the crossfire, or not ones that they care about.
What does Fairy Fire do exactly again? Because I'm reading through it here.
Yeah, Fairy Fire is the one where you target a big zone, and everyone in it has to make, I can't remember what kind of saving throw. I think it might be Wisdom. And if they fail, then they're like outlined by magical light, and all attacks against them have advantage until the spell is broken by either concentration or I think it lasts a minute otherwise. So actually that could be kind of cool. A Drider with a bunch of giant spiders, and it would like fairy fire the giant spiders because it doesn't really care about them. So the party would kind of have an advantage, but the spiders would too, and the Drider would just be like, this is fine, I don't care about either of you.
Yeah.
Next up, Spider Climb. The Drider can climb difficult surfaces, including upside down on ceilings, but not upside down on non-ceiling structures like caves. Only on ceilings. Only inside buildings.
Wait, what?
Without needing to make an ability check. I'm just making
ceilings.
a joke.
Oh, okay. I was like, is that in your book? Like,
No. It's funny that they say the Drider can climb difficult surfaces, including upside down on ceilings. When like I associate like ceiling with like a natural structure, or like with an artificial structure like a house. And I think if you just said upside down without the word on ceilings, it would still be as clear.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm just making fun. Sunlight sensitivity. While in sunlight, the Drider has disadvantage on attack rolls as well as on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight.
Drow thing.
Yeah, drow thing, also a kobold thing, bunch of other monsters have it too.
Yeah.
Just things that live in caves don't like the light. Web Walker. This is the most useless ability that all spiders have. The Drider ignores movement restrictions caused by webbing. Literally never comes up.
When I first read it, I thought it was cool because I was like, it ignores movement restrictions because of its webbing, as in it can use its webbing to get through movement restrictions. But it's like, no, it's just
I
that
get
if
you. Yeah.
Like, as in, if it has movement restrictions, it just uses its web to get out of it or something. I don't know.
That
like
would be
Spider-Man or
yeah. No, I know what you mean. Like, as in, like, if it would get over difficult terrain, it like sprays web and then climbs on that, so it's fine.
Yeah,
that would be really cool. It doesn't do that.
I actually thought it was that, but it's not. It's just like if you spray web on him, then you can't out-spider the spider, you know?
Exactly.
But honestly, it's like, when will this ever come up? And then, like, you know, 0.5 people out there will be like, actually, it happened to me once, you know?
Like it's not that it's a bad ability. It's actually a cool ability that makes sense and establishes how Driders and other spider-related creatures work. And it's actually a problem where, like, the game just doesn't have enough metal in terms of, and I don't mean with an A-E-L, I mean METTLE. Like, to like have complicated fights where like webbing would be a big concern, you know? Like, webbing is easy to destroy. Players get a lot of mobility options early on. Just like, I don't think it would be really important. And so, like, it's just a case of, like, it's an interesting ability, but you need a system, you know? You can't just make up rules, you know?
Yeah, D&D, come on. Get with the program.
Get with the picture. Do you want to read the actions, Mike?
Actions. He has a multi-attack. The Drider makes 3 attacks, either with its longsword or its longbow. I can replace one of those attacks with a bite attack. So it has its 3 attacks and can do just whatever with it. Because it has 3 kinds of attacks. Melee weapon attack, +6 to hit, reach 5 foot. 1 creature hit 2 or 1d4 piercing damage +9, 2d8 poison damage. Ouch.
That's that's interesting as well. That the poison damage, you don't get a save against that. You just take a bunch of extra damage. I mean, it's not that much, I suppose, but even still, yeah.
Longsword, melee weapon attack, +6 to hit, reach 5 feet, 1 target hit 7, 1d8 +3 slashing damage, or 8, 1d10 +3 slashing damage if used with 2 hands. So you use it as a versatile weapon, basically.
Yeah.
So,
just clarifying that, yeah.
Longbow, range weapon attack, +6 to hit, range 120 or 600 with disadvantage. 1 target, hit 7 or 1d8 +3 piercing damage, +4, 1d8 poison damage. I like that. That's kind of like kind of poisoned arrows, you know, maybe.
Poisoned arrows are cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very cool. Very cool stuff there. Maybe it kind of makes maybe it makes out of its web like a sharp arrow or something, and it's poisoned or something, you know. Or it has from other spiders, other giant spiders, like made out of its fangs or something, you know. A quiver of arrows. Either way, I like that. I like that it just has poison arrows. So yeah, cool stuff. So the Drider, that's the Drider's attacks. It can make 3 attacks, and one of them can be a bite. It's just some regular roll attacks. Pretty cool stuff. But there's one thing that the Drider has that you were saying there, that it can have spell casting. Yes. They're innate spellcasters, but they can also have spells of their own, and we're talking about that. So it has a little thing here talking about that one. So I shall read that. Drider spellcasting. Driders that were once drow spellcasters might retain their ability to cast spells. Such Driders typically have a higher spellcasting ability, 15 or 16, than other Driders. Further, the Drider gains the spellcasting trait. A Drider that has a drow divine spellcaster could have a wisdom of 16 +3 and a spellcasting trait as follows. Spellcasting, the Drider is a 7th level spellcaster. Its spellcasting ability is wisdom. Spell save DC 14 +6 to hit with spell attacks. The Drider has the following spells prepared from the cleric spell list. So this is kind of going with, like, if it's a divine spellcaster, here's a few examples that I can give you. So I guess I'll read them out to give you guys a bit of flavor. At will, some cantrips, poison spray and thaumaturgy. Poison spray is a regular, like, poison attack. Thaumaturgy, kind of very similar to prestidigitation, kind of full of just
just like a bunch of magical effects,
which would be very cool for a monster. You know, kind of, you can set the scene with that. First level, 4 slots: Bane, Detect Magic, and Sanctuary.
Bane is the opposite to Bless. So Bless is pick 3 friends, and those 3 friends get an extra D4 to like attack rolls and ability checks.
Yeah.
And maybe saving throws? I can't remember. They get an extra D4 to, I think, attack rolls and maybe not ability checks and saving throws, or maybe not saving throws. Anyway,
Yeah.
they get a D4 bonus. Bane is the opposite. They get a D4 subtracted. And obviously you normally put it on enemies. Sanctuary is the one where you cast it on yourself, and then as long as you don't take any hostile actions, every time someone wants to attack you, they have to make a wisdom saving throw, and if they fail, they are not allowed to attack you, and they either have to attack someone else or lose the attack.
That's cheat.
It is. You're right.
That's just cheating. Second level, whole person and silence. Grand spells. Yeah. One
Yeah,
level.
yeah.
I feel like this is what it does in Final Fantasy. I don't know if it does it in D&D. Can you use it to like stop spellcasters to like say the spells?
Yes, because silence, you can't make noise, so you can't complete any spells with verbal components.
Yes. So it's always been a good way to do that.
Like Final Fantasy, but the only difference is obviously if the spell doesn't require verbal components, they can still cast.
Yes. You can just still do your hand signs.
Yes.
Naruto jutsu. Third level, 3 slots, clairvoyance and dispel magic. And fourth level, 2 slots, divination and freedom of movement. What does freedom of movement do that's different from like what they already have a bunch of really good movement?
Freedom of movement is like you can spend 5 feet of movement to like escape any grapple or any bonds. Like you can like slip out of any restraint. And I think like stuff like I think things like hold person are less effective on you in some way, or like can't be cast on you while you're under the benefits of it.
Yeah.
So it's just like the strongest version of the reinforcing your mobility. Like it just basically makes it so that no one can like you basically can't be pinned or locked into a position.
And divination? That's
Divination is the one that lets you ask questions about the future, if I recall correctly.
right. Excellent. Okay. Very cool. That conversation didn't really have much to do with Driders, but their spells that the book here gives you that you can possibly give a Drider spellcaster, that would make the Drider pretty cool if you wanted to do that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we jump into this big dessert, I just remembered yesterday I wanted dessert, but we didn't have anything in the house, and my foot is fucked. I've hurt myself running, and now I can't walk anywhere. Like I'm hobbling around the house, and I was like, I'm just gonna order a milkshake. So I went online and I went to a chipper and I just ordered like a milkshake for me and Leanne and just some chips. It was great. We just had like milkshakes and watched the last 2 episodes of Voyager. I was just remembering that when we were talking about dessert. I was just like, what an age of decadence we live in, that you can use your phone and like you can use a computer that's like, you know, the size of like smaller than your hand, and like demand a stranger come to your house and bring you milkshakes.
And it's like, and because of COVID, no one's really going to fault you for that. You know, no one's like, it's just like, oh, this person just wants a milkshake and can't leave the house, you know, because
like
no one
yeah,
can.
exactly.
Like,
no one can leave the house. Like I can't leave the house even if I wanted to because of my leg. But like, if I would actually prefer normally to go out and maybe like buy an ice cream somewhere, or even go to the shops and buy like some
back in my day, you go to the man,
Listen,
you talk to the man,
you'd look him in the eye, you'd look them in the eye, and you'd say, "How are you?" And if you didn't, sure, look, you'd be dead.
You didn't, and then
you were dead instantly.
You're dead.
Instantly executed by the old ladies of the town. The real power behind the throne. I just remember that because of dessert. Before we jump into dessert, is there anything you want to say about the stat block before we go into kind of other stuff?
I think it's cool because it is just it's a tough monster. It's a good monster to throw at your players that just had the attacks are just regular attacks. Like it's just it has some poison stuff, but it's just a long sword and a long bow and a bite. That's all there is.
Yeah.
But it has the feats and stuff that like, has spider climb. It has like some weaknesses and some strengths there in the feats and some small spell casting bits. But I always like that of just having a simple monster, but a few things there to make it different. I always really like those monsters. Just the kind of like, we always like the monsters that are like the basilisk where they have the one thing and that's their thing that they do. I like to think Driders are kind of like that. They have a little bit more going on, but I think the Driders
like slightly more flexible. Yeah.
It's let's say it's a drow warrior, but they can walk on the walls. That's pretty it. Like that's kind of their thing.
Yeah, I'm absolutely agreeing. Like, because we like the basilisk. We like kind of the iconic simple monsters where it's like they have one thing they do, And like once the party solve that, they've like won the fight and they just have to finish off the HP. But
Yes.
then the Drider is kind of like a nice next step where it's like it's actually a very straightforward set of abilities. Like you know, the classic I think complaint about 5th edition is that most of the monster manual is just like actions, multi-attack. And it's like, yeah, fair enough. But like this one is like multi-attack, but the multi-attack is actually quite flexible. And also all of the rest of its abilities reinforce and modify how you should use those abilities. Like rather than having the nightmare of the variant full spell casting, it has 3 spells, and one of them's a cantrip that the Drider is not going to use, so you don't have to worry about that. The other 2 are both useful spells the Drider can use exactly once, so you don't have to remember them and how many casts they have. They basically have 2 once-a-day abilities. And, you know, Darkness and Verifier are both very straightforward spells for the most part. And then Spider Climb just lets them actually do stuff with the environment, which means that they can make the fight a lot more dynamic. You know, like looking at the stat block, I'm like, okay, well, the longbow does the most damage. It's as accurate as all the other attacks. And also any ranged attack is beneficial by virtue of you're able to make ranged attacks without being close enough that the person you're attacking is able to attack you back.
Yeah.
So they want to use the longbow probably. They probably want to use the longbow as much as possible. How are they going to do that? Well, they can climb on things. So they're probably going to stay on the ceiling, because why would they not be on the ceiling? Okay, so on the ceiling all the time. What else can they do? Well, they probably want to start the fight by hitting the party with fairy fire, because then they can see the whole party, and then it'll make them easier to shoot with their longbow, but also the party can't get away, and so that makes the fight more tense, you know? And it means that if the Drider elects to retreat, but leaves the spell on the party know, like, okay, we have to wait for the spell to go away, which means we can't like leave here. So if the Drider comes back, we're still here, or we can start running, but then we'll have given the Drider a hint that we're leaving because they can see us through walls as long as we're fairy fired. And so there's like actually kind of a battle of information and stuff as well as just health.
And even with stuff like sunlight sensitivity, it's like, oh, that just shows that you'll only really be finding it in a cave or like a heavy forest, you know, stuff with like,
exactly.
There's no sunlight, you know, stuff where it can climb, basically, where it can use a spider climb.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also the actions, because it's just like longsword, longbow, you can give him whatever you want. You can give it any kind of weapon. You can possibly give it like a magic weapon if you want to make it a bit tougher. You can like, if you want to change the actions, you can just give him a weapon. That's it. Just give him a different one, and it's easily done. So
yes. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, sorry. The other thing I wanted to mention before we move on, 2 interesting things that I've noticed about the Drider. First of all, it doesn't resist poison damage, and it doesn't have immunity to the poisoned condition, which I thought was just interesting because it uses poison damage, and it's very common that creatures, and I think spiders are actually immune to those things. It's very common that creatures that rely on poison damage have some kind of resilience against it, either resistance or like they ignore the condition, or both. Most of the time, it's both. But the Drider, despite being a creature that uses poison, doesn't have any resistance to it, which is actually kind of interesting because it means that the party can like back and forth with it on poison, although parties don't tend to have a lot of poison abilities. Secondly, despite having Web Walker, it does not have the ability to make webs.
Wow, you're right.
It doesn't have the web action that giant spiders have.
What is the web action then?
Yeah, there's a web spell, but there's also a web action that's basically the same thing as the spell.
How come it doesn't have a web spell then? Like
that's exactly what I was going to say. This is the interesting thing to me, that it either doesn't have the web spell as an innate spell, which would make sense and simplify things, or just give it the web action that giant spiders have. Either one, or give it both, which would be really weird and interesting because then it would have like multiple ways of making webs.
You're about to say what the web action does, so continue. Sorry.
Sorry. The web action is literally just like giant spiders have it, and it's just you create like a 20-foot section of web somewhere, and everyone who's in there when you create it has to save or they're stuck, and it's difficult terrain. And I think maybe anyone who ends their turn there has to save again. Actually, I think they don't. I think it's just you do it once.
That is strange, yeah. Like it seems like they kind of like weren't like it might be just being an oversight as well, or they just didn't want to like give it another thing.
Yeah. Oh, and there's also a version of the web action where it's not a group attack, it's just you hit one person with web. I ran a really cool monster from a different book that uses webs but just ties up one person when it webs them, and like it basically does the equivalent of like the Spider-Man and like catches them, but like doesn't hit anyone else.
Does the Spider-Man spits a web in his eye, catches criminals just like Fly?
Exactly.
Watch out!
Here comes the Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So yeah, but like either the web spell or the web action, it doesn't have either. And that's just interesting. I don't know if it was a thing they forgot or if it was part of the design. They decided not to give it to it. But it is interesting. I think between the decision not to give it poison resistances and the decision not to give it web abilities, aside from Web Walker, is just, I think that's, yeah, it's weird. It feels like they, I don't know if it was like forgotten or if they were just like, oh, well, the point is that the form is a curse, so they don't get any cool spider abilities. Like, you know, so like as in resisting poison and like having a web attack would be things that a spider benefits from. And because it's supposed to be a curse, you shouldn't get those benefits.
Yeah, but also I'm like, I personally don't accept that as an excuse if it is, you know.
I mean,
like, it should be a drow spider. That's what it should be,
like,
first and foremost, you know.
Exactly. Like, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, that's the only thing I can think of other than either A, it was a balance problem, and that's bollocks, because this game is not balanced.
No.
God no. Oh God no. Or like, so like either it was, you know, a balance question, which I sort of doubt. It was a size question because they wanted to keep the Drider on one page, which is maybe more likely. Like it was a size / complexity problem. They forgot, or it's supposed to be a curse. So it's one of those 4, I think. I don't really care which. I just thought that was interesting. Like, you know, to me, I expected, like because I read the stats, I expected to read poison resistance, and I was surprised when I did not, and that's the reason I thought I'd mention it.
Would poison resistance make that much of a difference?
No.
Poison
no.
doesn't, like, I don't think that game devs were really thinking that, like, they weren't really, like, it's not like oh, poison is a bad stat, so let's not put it in. Like, they weren't thinking that because, like, why they put it in the first place if, like, but I was like, but would it make a difference even if they had it there? Like, you know, it is strange that it's not there.
To me, what's interesting is I feel like, so I'm thinking like, okay, Drider's a CR6 monster. Yeah. I've heard hilarious tales of friend of the podcast, Stephen Brady, running games for people, and despite having run games for a long time, his players have not learned any new information. So it's entirely possible that players, despite being 6th level, have learned nothing about the game. But I'd like to set that aside and imagine a world where players have learned something. Just you know, indulge me slightly.
Oh, sure. All right.
So your party are level 6. Let's say you started level 1. This is your first ever D&D game. You're level 6. You've probably fought giant spiders because they're a great low-level enemy because they're scary and they're creepy and they're monsters. Like, they're animals. So they don't have like morals or anything. Like, they just want to eat you. So it's like, it's like killing them is like most of the time pretty unambiguously like either A, good thing, or B, understandable because they were going to eat you. Like, it wasn't good or bad, but it was like a survival decision and it doesn't matter. So great enemy for early parties. And, you know, some people have like really visceral reactions to spiders, which can be kind of fun. Like, if everyone's okay with it, they go, oh, gross. Like, you know, that's a fun moment. So like, and like spiders, normal giant spiders do resist poison. So all I can think is like, if a party has any amount of experience with spiders and they encounter a Drider and you explain like, it's a big spider person, they're probably going to assume it has resistance to poison damage and behave accordingly, right? So the only time that they will use poison is either they know the rules well enough to know Driders don't resist poison, they've, you know, rolled a relevant check and found out, or they have by chance used a poison attack and it hasn't been resisted. And like, in none of those situations is it really that powerful or like unbalanced or whatever, you know what I mean?
So I guess, like, you know, the moral of the story is or if there is a moral, but like, I think you can probably give it poison resistance and like give them that poison resistance if you want, and it wouldn't make too much of a difference, but it might add to it if you think. Like, I don't think it'll change too much about it, basically, looking at it. As in, it won't, like, unbalance it at all. Like, it won't, like, it's not going to make him overpowered, but it might add to, like, if, the situation, the specific situation you were talking about there, Daniel, if that ever were to happen and a player's like, oh, maybe it's also resistant to poison, so I won't use that. And if you hear a player saying that, like, oh, then I guess I'll just write that onto the stat block right now, you know?
Yeah, sensible. Give it the abilities they anticipate, and then like they can use that. But like, my personal, anyway, sorry. This is supposed to be the end of section 2. Should we get to section 3? Because I've diverted course, and I apologize. We've kind of arrived at the entrance to section 3, but we've done like a big loop around the car park because I got distracted and didn't take the right sign.
Yeah, and also just we're just having a chat. We're just like I'm standing outside your house, just having a chat with you, and then like, all right, I gotta go.
You're outside, 6 feet away. I'm inside, letting all the heat out. We're yelling at each other. All the neighbors are upset.
Yeah, they're all upset.
They're all raging.
All right, talk to you. See you, Maddie.
Yeah, talk to you.
Bye bye. Yeah, we'll go on to section 3 then.
Okay, excellent.
Which is also called dessert time.
Dessert. Don't get deserted on this island.
Nice. So what are you going to say?
So I was going to say, first of all, we'll return to the questions. All our listeners are raving for it. They all want to know about the Matrix room. How does it go? They want us to reference the hit film from 2000, The Matrix, which everyone still cares about and had great sequels that everyone loved. And it's still relevant because they are somehow making a 4th movie, and I don't know why. And Keanu Reeves is going to be in it, and he's a nice man, but he's old. I feel like, don't make him do more. He's gonna put his back out if you make him do more bends. Well,
I'm pretty sure how it's gonna go is he's gonna be in the Matrix room, and then the party's going to get a really big glass and then a piece of paper. And do you want to know how long I've been holding on to that one for like the entire show?
Oh my god!
And I was like, Daniel, please ask me how to defeat this thing. Please ask me how we're going to defeat him. Please.
That is so fucking. That is unbelievable. I don't even think we should keep recording. I don't know how we're gonna fucking top that. Oh god. Oh fucking hell. Oh god. I love the idea that the party prepare for hunting a Drider by getting a really big glass made.
Glass blower, I need something from you.
Yeah, I need your largest glass. You cast what is it, Phantasmal Killer, and it spawns the creature's greatest fear, and it's just a big newspaper. No.
You just got thrown into a really, really big bath, and it just can't go up the sides. It just keeps sliding down.
Oh, fuck me.
So, the Matrix room. By the looks of this, I think we were you already kind of mentioned it that
I did
in the last section that it will probably spider climb, and then use its longbow. I think, and then. It'll either be a situation where maybe you have to try and shoot it. Maybe you can shoot it down. Actually, maybe you can kind of get a ranged attacker to either shoot a magic missile or shoot an arrow at it, and then it hits it enough and it gets weak, and then they fall on the ground, and then you attack its weak point for massive damage, and then you have to do the same thing 3 times again. No, but maybe it can fall or something if you hit it with the right kind of attack, or an area of effect attack or something. And then that's how your fighter would come in with a big mace and just smack it in the face.
Yeah.
It will probably start with a longbow, and then after that, it'll just be you're just shooting at it, and you're just going to be throwing hits at each other, really. And I don't think it will last that long. I don't think this is one of those epic boss monsters. I think this is kind of part of an ensemble or something. I think this is kind of one of a good ensemble monster that you throw onto the field with a bunch of other guys to add to the chaos.
Yeah, I would actually very strongly agree with that. The main strength the creature has, the Drider has, is just it's got a pretty good health pool, 123 hit points. Yeah, which is pretty respectable for a creature of that challenge and that size. And then I guess the fact that it'll want to stay at range might mean that it lasts longer. But as you say, I think that in the Matrix Real Throne, it tries to keep range with the party and shoot at them with its bow. And if the party can ever close that distance, then I think the party wins. I think that the Drider is much more interesting as the leader of a pack of giant spiders,
Yes,
especially at even level 5 or 6. I think a really cool like mini boss in a large dungeon could be basically the equivalent of you fall into Shelob's lair. Like you just, a party, like a pit opens up and a party member falls down, and the rest of you jump in after it. You all end up in a massive web, and these huge spiders start to close in around you, and then you start fighting them off, and then the master reveals themselves, and they start laughing maniacally and explaining like, "Oh, I'm going to turn you into food," or blah, blah, blah. And you're like, "What's happening?
What's that? What is this? I have to go in 20 minutes.
I actually have to be. I can't be here for much longer.
I can't fight this Drider. I have to I need to pick up. I need to pick up the kids. Okay, no, but that makes a lot of sense though, because it does say in all the bits about it that they go sent to the material plane, and then they might find spiders to just kind of be a leader of. So that's a great encounter. Just like it's a giant spider encounter. That's fine. But
that's
spooky,
fine.
But whatever, you can do that. Like, and then this thing appears. Like, oh crap, something bigger is here. This is
something bigger and totally different.
Yeah. And then it is it's almost like it can kind of like lead the spiders in a less animalistic, like military way, but not of course like that, but just kind of, it might be a bit smarter. The spiders might be a little bit smarter.
Like the spiders have been trained like animals to fight smarter. The other thing I was going to say was, before I forget, I said leading a pack of giant spiders, but it should definitely be a pack of giant spiders and also swarms of spiders.
Yes.
That's, in my opinion, that's the double bill. You should always have it be like both if you can help it.
And that's just like, whoever has arachnophobia, like, is just going to have a bad time.
It's going to have a bad time. And like the nice thing is that both swarms of spiders and giant spiders are both reasonably low challenge monsters. You could actually, if you wanted to have a cool boss fight, you could even turn like some of them into minions, so that it's really about numbers and managing yourself and protecting yourself. But I will say, the one thing that I think about the Drider is that the Drider is interesting because on its own, it's kind of challenging monster, but not that difficult, because it doesn't actually do that much damage. Its highest damage is 11, either with its bite or its bow. Both of those do 11 damage on average. Obviously the math changes things, but on average, the longbow and the bite both do 11 damage. The longbow is generally more useful though, because you can be 150 feet away rather than 5 feet away. And there are lots of characters that can't deal with something being 150 feet away. So that's obviously better, but actually 11 damage, even at level 6, and they have to hit, isn't that great? 11 damage is, kind of, it's like a problem, but it's not an immediate, like, that Drider is our top priority. But what I think is, what I will say for any of our listeners who are now thinking about running this fight, because of Fairy Fire, the Drider is a force multiplier. So in other words, if it hits even like 2 members of the party with Fairy Fire, every attack against them is going to have advantage, which is going to mean those party members are going to lose a lot more health, either from the Drider itself or from the Drider's allies. So like, just be aware of like, it basically how many extra turns the bad guys have, like the Drider plus how many spiders versus the party, and consider that like once they get hit with Fairy Fire, assuming they do get hit, because obviously they could all save and that would be fine, but assuming at least 1 or 2 of them gets hit, then the Drider is smart enough to focus fire them, because the Drider is an intelligent creature. It has an intelligence of 13. Like, it's smarter than most people in the context of Dungeons and Dragons. So it's smart enough to know, I've hit them with my spell that makes them easier to hit. I'm probably just going to keep hitting them with arrows unless something urgent comes up. There's very little reason for me not to keep attacking them with arrows. So, like, assuming they do that, even that one party member is going to have a slightly worse time, even assuming that none of the extra monsters attack them. Assuming it hits more party members, suddenly they're all vulnerable to everything, which is cool and tense, and obviously creates the context where, like, oh god, that Drider has suddenly made this fight much more dangerous. Like, we thought we were in a fight against, like, low challenge monsters and we're a high level party and we're going to kick ass. And suddenly we're all being hit way more frequently. We're losing loads of health. We can't cut through this line of spiders to reach the Drider. The fight's getting really tense, which is cool, but it might be lethal. So Here's your backup plan. If the party are knocked unconscious, if they're defeated, they are not killed. The Drider puts them in webs and is going to feed them to their babies later. And the party can stage a cool escape attempt.
And that's, I was going to just mention that as well, that like it would be so cool to, like, you know, have the party caught in webs and then the Drider kind of taunting them or something, or just like you have to escape from it. But like, where is the, we talked about this, there's no web ability, it can't do that. But like you'd see that happening though. Like it should, obviously, if it wants to eat you, then it should put you in a web, you know? Like, it's still weird.
It is weird. I agree, it's weird.
That's cool though. I really like that encounter, Dan. That's a very cool encounter. Just because when I first read about the Drider there, and it says some stuff about divine spellcasters. First of all, you can probably have them whatever class you want, but they would make sense to be like a cleric or a paladin of Lolth. You know, you can probably have them be a bit stronger. Maybe you can have if your player is playing a drow character, if you're doing kind of more of a, you know, evil campaign, then maybe they can turn into a Drider somehow if they mess up or something. Maybe they can be a Drider and they kind of want to get like, you know, they want to. Going with this like first quote, I failed the Spider Queen once, never again. They can probably try to like, you know, gain the loyalty back again, you know, or maybe Lolth keeps them around because now they like want to really be loyal because she sees them as failures, but like now they're like, no, they have something to prove now, you know, so they're like very good paladins and clerics to have around, you know. But you know, you can easily just have that where they can be healing, they can be the divine, you can have a lot more divine spells than just the ones there, you know. So I just think, yeah, Drider paladins and clerics make a lot of sense just to do with the lore that's given in the book.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I will also expand on that slightly by saying, and I will springboard off this into the idea I had, which is that as you kind of mentioned briefly, the idea of being friends with the Drider. But I'm thinking less in terms of like an actual ally and more like so Driders are like powerful drow that underwent a sort of mystic trial and failed and were outcast. And so I think they could be a really cool like knowledge source, like a kind of a witchy character, like sort of a lore keeper who the party might return to because they need information, and like the Drider is like uniquely experienced. And even though they're an outcast, and even though, hey, you know, you could even say the Drider is an evil creature, it's like not like, you know, the party are powerful enough that they, you know they can defeat this Drider, and it knows that too, so it doesn't bother trying to fight you. But it is still a creature that would like kill you if it had the chance, and you maybe know that, but you know, maybe you fight it once, spare its life, and say like, we spared you, now you owe us. And when you can return to them for knowledge occasionally. And just to expand on that idea, as well as being clerics and paladins, which I think makes a lot of sense, and actually plays well with this spellcasting variant because they have spells like clairvoyance and divination, which are obviously like kind of long range. Oh God, I slapped my microphone again. Terribly sorry. Which are kind of like long range, like spying spells, like information gathering spells. And having someone to cast those for you can be very powerful. So like returning to this Drider and getting them to do that is kind of cool. But also, as well as clerics and paladins, it would be interesting and probably make some sense for them to be warlocks of Lolth.
The clairvoyant spell could be that they see through spiders, smaller spiders around the world. You know,
that's fucking really good. That's a very cool idea.
They use spiders as spies.
A
bit of flavor there, but go ahead.
No, that's very good. I especially like that is like, the Drider's got this like lair in the middle of like a haunted wood, and like they knew you were coming. Every time you go to the wood to speak to them, they like know ahead of time you're coming because they can like see you thousands of eyes. That's very cool.
And then maybe you can kind of explain it like, spiders that like a spider just keeps like just crawls out of your like your shirt and like, damn it.
Oh, that'd be good. Like especially like the idea that they're on the party and like the party didn't realize. That'd actually be so cool. But yeah, so they've got useful spells, but also like if you said they were a warlock, and they had like, even though they failed Lolth, they have this kind of connection because Lolth has done something to them. And that like, you know, it's like, oh, that creates a kind of unbreakable mark.
Yeah, it's already a very warlocky thing that they were kind of given a power by
they were
this, outsider.
An outsider directly intervened in their lives.
Yes.
So the idea that they may be a warlock, and perhaps they're a warlock that like other warlocks in the party can interact with in some way, like giving them an understanding of their pact or warning them about certain ways, like especially because like Lolth is, I think, I want to say a devil or a demon technically. Like it's actually not a god, a celestial creature. It's actually like a fiend of some description, or it might be an aberration. But anyway, like especially if the party member who is a warlock has like archfiend or something else similar to that, that like the Drider could maybe be like a fable, like a character who can like teach this PC a lesson about how to be careful with your patron, because if you displease them enough, you might end up like me, which is kind of a cool thing, just to have a little back and forth there, to create this thing of like, there's this evil creature and you use them sometimes and they're useful to you and they live out in the woods and they've sworn not to hurt anybody, and you travel to the woods to get information off them, but like, and like your party are like, yeah, fine, whatever, but like you as a PC, like your character has kind of a bond with them because you both have the power from the same source, but they're almost like you if you fail, and like you can use that as a lesson. Like that'd be very cool, I think.
Yeah, so like I guess my final thought on it that I've kind of touched on before, that the Drider, you can kind of just use them as a almost like kind of like almost like one of the NPC stat like blocks at the back of the box at the back of the book. There you can just kind of you can give them like maybe not armor, but can give them whatever weapons you want. They can kind of like you can kind of meld them in, give them whatever weapons, maybe whatever class and spells you want, whatever you think that will really fit. This, because they were just a drow before and they could have been whatever, but they were just cursed to look like this, so to live like this, so yeah, mess around with that one. That's a great, and just to slightly expand on that, something you could do that would be cool is as well as giving them different weapons, and we mentioned before, like in particular, if you like that idea of them as a boss fight, I think it makes a lot of sense to give them a magic weapon, because obviously they've sort of got this mini boss role, and then you can kind of, hey, you get treasure because you beat a mini boss. Because like if you give a boss a magic weapon, then the players get a magic weapon at the end when they defeat it. Yeah, exactly. It's always because they see how it's used, and then exactly. They know it. They're like, I want that sword, and then they get that sword after it. But Driders are cool. I like that. Cool monster. Yeah, that was good. Monster. Good monster block there. Shall we leave it there, Daniel, for another episode of Creature Club Podcast, award-winning show from the creators of nothing. We haven't made anything. We've made nothing but this. We've done nothing. We've done nothing with our lives. The creators of a pretty good chili that I've made once. So there we go. That's true. Yeah. And many other stuff that Daniel made too. We've done lots of stuff. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. This has been Creature Club Podcast. If you liked what you listened to, and this is the first one, please consider following us, subscribing, whatever you do on whatever podcast app you do. Just give us a follow, a like. Do all that stuff. That'll be great. It always helps us out. Leave a review if it's on iTunes, because that helps us out quite a bit too. A contact us form on our website, www.creatureclub.com. You can go below the episode and comment, or you can use the contact us form to just send general queries. Although if you want to get in touch with us immediately, you can go to our Twitter, which is @CreatureClubPod. We'll generally see things pretty quickly if they go up there, but obviously you've got the character limit. That's not your style. We've also got a Gmail, creatureclubpodcast@gmail.com. And as far as I'm aware, there's no character limit on emails. So if you've got a lot to say, that's the place to go. It's also the place to go if you want to give us, like, say, like some sort of monster or spell or subclass or race or anything else that you've created, any homebrew you've made for Dungeons and Dragons. What a lot of people like to do, they're like, oh, I used a Drider before, here's how I used it, or here's a cool way I did it, and we get a lot of cool stuff like that. We don't really have time to talk about in the podcast, but we like to bring them up every once in a while. I know Tim likes to do that. Do a little bit of a male read, but
he does. He's our community expert.
Absolutely, but he is once again, as I said, the last episode, he is working super hard,
He's working unbelievably hard.
Unbelievably hard. It is ridiculous the amount of work he's doing right now. So everyone send good vibes his way. Tell him to stay safe, and we shall get him back as soon as humanly possible we can.
Exactly.
But we don't want to overwork the man either. So
yeah. And that's the reason we like homebrews is we have done 2 homebrew specials, which is entirely episodes where we talk about stuff submitted by our listeners. They're really good, both of them. They're really fun, and I would recommend them. If you are new to this podcast and you've somehow ended up here, which, by the way, welcome. But do jump back to those homebrew specials because they're good fun. And we'll probably do this again. We might wait until we have... Oh, God, I've dropped something on Mike. We might wait until we have Tim back. But we would like to do more homebrew specials. And then we make a little document and attach it to the thing, and you can go and get it, and then you can run the monsters yourself, and it's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think now is a good time for you guys to throw us some homebrew monsters, because they're all pretty great. They're all great. So that is Creature Club Podcast, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Next week we shall talk about something else. I have been Mikey.
And I've been Dan.
Stay cool.
And happy November 2nd.
Ooh, November 2nd. Scary.
Ooh, it's almost Guy Fawkes night.
It's almost Thanksgiving. What are we going to do this year?
Oh, God. I'm not going to be allowed. One of my friends does really good Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm not going to be allowed to go to her house and eat it. Oh, that's a shame.
I don't know how to cook a turkey, so I can't do it here in my own house.
I wouldn't. My roommate's a vegetarian, so there'd be no point in doing a turkey.
Yeah, can't eat a whole turkey by yourself, man.
I could, but I shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
There are rules.
I think we're doing. I think if I don't know if we can do a Thanksgiving now, especially because we're in a lockdown again. But I think we might try and do one here in the house because I live with 3 other people myself.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. So I think we might just have a dinner maybe. But we're all very busy. We all kind of. It's hard to get us all in the same place. You know, every once in a while we get together to watch Bake Off, and then that's it. You know.
I mean,
we're all kind of going past.
If you're going to do one thing together, that's a pretty good choice.
It is, yeah.
Like Bake Off or Star Trek, I'd say those would be my top 2. Cause and if you've watched all of Bake Off, just start watching Star Trek because there's so much of it, and it's great because it's really slow, and so you can stick it on, and literally we will stick on Star Trek, and I will be in and out of the room making cups of tea. My roommate will be on her Switch playing a bit of Animal Crossing. And we can still keep up because the plot's so slow. It's just you always know what's going on. It's great. It's perfect.
Yeah. What's Picard getting up to this time? What's he doing?
He's doing the thing where he puts his head in his hand because he's disappointed with someone. It's
another Data episode.
It's another episode where someone tries to shag Troy, and it's like, lads, would you ever?
You're so horny.
Jesus, it's a crew of a couple of hundred people. Is there no one else that you'd be like, oh, I like them too. This person I work with.
Jesus,
lads. I guess stare out into the big void of space, and you're like, I have to procreate or die. Maybe that's it.
That's probably it. Yeah, that's what I say to myself every morning.
Tim, keep that in.
Yeah.